Hi guys, I'm Samantha. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to do my August-September wrap-up. Now, I've been absent. I missed my August wrap-up and my September TBR, and that is because I started work again. I'm a teacher. My work starts after Labor Day and goes through the beginning of June, and I couldn't really figure out how to fit this in. But I'm here now, and that's what's important. And I have actually read quite a lot, in my opinion. I didn't read much in August, but I read a lot in September, and I will talk about why I think that is. So let's get into the wrap-up. I read 15 books throughout August and September for a total of 6,121 pages. Oh yeah, can I just say, like, that was awful. But you know what I mean? Like, that's a lot of pages. And 15 books, it's 2 months. Granted, it's 2 months, but it's a lot of books. I read 4 audiobooks and 8 ebooks. I had a mix of reviews from 2 to 4.5 stars. So let's get into it. The first book I bought in July, and it was Because You Love to Hate Me. It's an anthology of stories about villains, edited by Amory, with contributions from many booktubers. I ended up giving this anthology a 3.5. None of the stories were a 5 for me. A few were a 4, some were 3s, so it averaged out. I'm not a fan of no happy endings, and because these are villains, not very many of them had happy endings. But 3.5, it was generally okay. The next book started the first readathon that I've ever tried, which was the Tome Topple readathon, and I read From Hell by Alan Moore and Eddie Campbell, and I gave From Hell a 4 stars. At the beginning, it was hard for me to get into because of the illustrations, and it's the biggest graphic novel I've ever read, although the subject matter was great. It was a Jack the Ripper story with the focus on a conspiracy theory about Jack the Ripper, who he was and why he did what he did. It was very good. I would recommend. The next book I read was also for the Tome Topple Readathon, and it was The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. I was unsure about this book at the very beginning. I ended up giving it a 4.5 stars, and honestly, it's because of the last chapter. Seriously. It's a historical fiction with a little bit of magic thrown in about a boy named Monty and his friend Percy and his sister. He is about to take over the estate from his father, and he goes on a grand tour of Europe, or at least that's the plan, but he makes some mistakes and needs help from his sister and his best friend. It's a very interesting story. The magic element caught me off guard, but I liked it. I wasn't sure about Monty as our main character, but the last chapter really stole my heart for him. I listened to it on audiobook, and it was a very good audiobook. Like, highly recommend. The last book I read for the Tome Topple readathon, so like I didn't finish the readathon, but the next book got me into a reading slump for sure. It was A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. I listened to this on audiobook. I tried reading it physically, but the book was just so big, I got intimidated every time I opened it. If you don't know, because you've been living under a rock, like me, A Game of Thrones is a fantasy story taking place in this fantasy kingdom called Westeros, and it's about these families in a kingdom, and there's dragons, or so I'm told. The dragons don't really come into play in the first book. I gave A Game of Thrones 3.5 stars. It was just okay. I really don't feel the need to read the rest of the books in the series. It was just okay. It was just really big. Yeah, those fantasy books, a lot of exposition. It was so big. So big. After that, I got into, like I said, I got into kind of a reading slump. So I joined another readathon, which was the reading quest, which I also failed miserably at, but I gave it my best go. A book I read for that was Pretty Little Liars by Sarah Shepard. I gave it a 2. I did not like it. If you've seen the show like I have, I adored the show. My sister-in-law and I watched it and we loved it. But the book, the girls were pretentious and snobby and I didn't like them at all. It made the book very hard for me to read. I didn't care about any of them. A 2. I don't recommend it. The next book I read was Silver Silence by Nalini Singh, the 16th book in the Side Changeling series, the first book in the Trinity Accords spin-off, kind of, I guess. It is about a Psy woman named Silver who thinks that she cannot become just a normal member of society. She thinks because her power, her psychic power, is so dangerous that she needs to be reined in, she has to keep silent. But there is a changeling who thinks that he can break her out of it. And he's a bear changeling, and it's the first time we've really seen the bears in this series. So if you are a fan of shapeshifters, psychic powers, I really think you'd enjoy it. I gave it a 4. Very good. It brought me back into her universe, and I can't wait for the next one to come out. The next 5 books I read, which is why I'm going to clump them together, are all in the Judgement of the Six series by Melissa Haig. I think I'm saying that right. It's a series about werewolves, kind of. They don't really refer to themselves that way, but and then these girls who have these powers, and each one is a perfect mate for one of these werewolves, but they're on a mission that they don't really understand until I'm assuming the final book. They're kind of getting it, but the final book hasn't come out yet. I gave each of them a 3 stars. They are hopeless, misfortune, unwise, unbidden, and discontent. The characters were enjoyable, the story was enjoyable. I liked where the romance went in the later books, but they were still just okay. I am going to read the 6th one when it comes out. I tried to read the miniature books from the guy's perspective, but I really don't like books that are the exact same story from another character's perspective. And that's what it was. So, but I will be reading the 6th book. The next 2 books I read were the first 2 books in the Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. I gave each book a 4 stars. I am currently listening to the 3rd book in the series. The audiobook is amazing. I love the narrator. The fact that he can do girls' voices believably, I mean, not great, he's obviously a man, but I like it. I listen to it on my way to work, and I find it super enjoyable. The Raven Cycle is about these boys who go to a prep school in Virginia and a girl who goes to a regular public school. One of the boys is on a quest to find a king that is supposedly sleeping, and it has to do with magic and ley lines and them working together, and they are teenagers, so growing their relationships, figuring out what 3 boys and 1 girl, how that relationship's going to work. In the 3rd book, the adults are finally starting to get in on it, and I'm loving this series. I think it is superbly done. Highly recommend. The next book is All Rights Reserved by Gregory Scott Katsoulis. I think I'm saying that right. I don't know for sure. I gave it a 4 star. I read it through my school's library. The librarian had got it at the ALA conference this summer, and in this book, the story goes that when you hit a certain age, 15, you now have to pay for every gesture, word, anything that comes out or across, you have to pay for it. And basically, teenagers inherit their parents' debt, their family's debt, and they slowly have to work it down, but of course they're using words, so the debt just keeps going and going and going. After the girl, Speth, witnesses a tragedy, she decides that she doesn't want to participate in this society, so she decides not to talk, which unerringly starts a revolution. I gave it a 4 star. I also reviewed it, so I will have that review on Goodreads linked down below, as well as all the other books' Goodreads pages. And the last book I read in the month of September was Unforgivable by Joanna Chambers. Now this is a republishing. It is a historical fiction about a woman who is disfigured from having the chickenpox, and she gets married off to a man who doesn't want to be married. He feels like he got gypped because he was in love with someone else. So he leaves her at a country estate for 5 years. The whole time I was reading it, I felt this pit in like my chest that I felt her pain, the main character's pain, and I wanted her to fix it, and then a couple things happened and I still felt her pain, and I cried a couple of times. Honestly, I didn't think I would, which is why I ended up giving this book a 4-star as well. I felt the emotion, and I wanted it to work out. And the writing was it was better than I was expecting, and I really enjoyed it. And I think if you like historical fiction, like straight historical romantic fiction, you would love this book too. That is what I read in August and September of 2017. I think I did pretty well. I definitely got stuck in a reading slump after those giant books, and the reading quest didn't help too much. I'm not sure if I'm going to do TBRs anymore. I'm still warring with myself because I'm definitely a mood reader, and I need to look on my Nook and see what looks interesting, look through my library, and I just pull out a book. I have trouble planning what I'm going to read. So I might start doing an anticipated TBR, but definitely don't come to my channel looking for what I will be reading that month, because it's most likely not going to happen. That's all I have for you today. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I would love to have you as part of my BookTube family. Click the little bell icon if you'd like to be notified when I post new videos. Comment down below. Let me know how your month went, what you read. I would love to get new perspectives. Thanks for watching. Bye.